Okay, next up, we're going to discuss Saturn moving into Aries on February 13th. So we've already done Uranus, we've already done Neptune, which shifted just yesterday. You'll eventually feel it. It is slow moving. But we also have another shift happening on February 13th, and this is going to be Saturn moving into Aries. Well, what does this mean? Well, Saturn rules structure, it rules discipline, it rules rebuilding. And anytime you're dealing with Saturn, Saturn has a tendency to tear down what isn't working in order to rebuild it stronger and better. That's Saturn's energy. Saturn is a gloomy planet. It produces the fear principle in its negative and discipline in its positive. Now, souls born with strong Capricorn or Moon or dragons, including Mercury in that sign, are going to possess strong rational minds. So Mercury in Capricorn, things like that. Mercury in Capricorn right here. Strong rational mind. I put logic and reason in before anything else. And that's just me. Now let's talk Saturn in the medical perspective, because on the medical aspect of astropsychology, Saturn rules the skin, the bones, the teeth, and the knees. And because of the fishtail for the goat symbol, now you'll notice modern astrology, there's no longer a goat symbol or a fishtail, as to where if you go to places in the Middle East or places in Europe where there's old churches or any kind of old architecture with zodiac symbols, you will find the fishtail. Modern astrology has gotten rid of that, but there's something very important to Capricorn's fishtail. That is the tail of metaphysics. And even though a lot of Capricorns are either incredibly indoctrinated into religion or completely atheistic, they forget that they used to be the great metaphysician of the zodiac at one time. But Saturn, let's get back to it. Anytime you're dealing with Saturn, this is also the great malefic planet. If you're in Patreon, you know what I'm talking about. There's benefic, which is good, and there's malefic, which is bad. I work with a lot of Saturn energy for baneful workings at times, and it's great. Of course, I'm a Saturnian child, so it will work very well. Moving on. So with Saturn being in Aries, what does Aries rule on the medical aspect? It rules the head, the brain. So with this planet moving in, this is where the next 3 years can create migraines, headaches, confusion, things like that. Just something to be aware of on the medical aspect part of it. But let's talk about Saturn moving into Aries. The fiery and competitive nature of Aries is frozen as Saturn makes Aries take caution. This placement must learn to structure and build confidence, rebuilding their entire self-esteem. There are a lot of people with a Saturn in Aries placement that lack self-esteem. They're the kind of people that sometimes sit in the mirror and look at themselves and say, should I do this? Should I not do this? Saturn in Aries is not the greatest of placements, but like I said, this placement's going to have to learn to build discipline, to build structure, and to build their own confidence. And really rebuilding your entire self-esteem. That's really what it's about. Now, people that are born with this placement, these souls are usually put into a position of leadership where they have to have a quick and proper judgment that will prevail. So they have to be on their toes, on their feet. Souls that are born between 1996 and 1998 are actually experiencing their very first Saturn return. This is usually happens in the late 20s. Now, souls born between 1967 and 1969, you're expecting your Saturn, your second Saturn return. So you should be in your late 50s right now. And then there's some people that are experiencing their third Saturn return. And lucky you, you've manifested and tapped into the realm of Capricorn's old age and living long. So, but that is Saturn in Aries. Saturn is one of those planets that moves every 3 years. Sometimes we go into a little retrograde, and you could see what's going on for a few months with that planet in retrograde. But February 13th, Saturn does move into Aries. So, and for those of you that are on your Saturn return, I will come back on here in a second, and I'm going to explain to you what the Saturn return is. All right, so we were just talking about Saturn and the Saturn return for some people, depending on where you're at. Like I said, third return, my understanding is that's like 87 to 90, something like that. But when we're dealing with a Saturn return, it takes Saturn approximately 29.5 years to orbit the belt of the zodiac. So in astrology, a Saturn return is actually one of they consider it a very significant placement. It's like a rite of passage in some ways in a person's life. And this occurs when the planet Saturn completes its complete orbit around the sun and returns to the exact position it occupied in the sun at the very moment you were born. So a lot of us will be experiencing our Saturn return either this year, next year, or the year after. It just depends. But it is about marking the end of something, and the end of an era, the end of an age, the end of your 20s, moving into your 30s, you're heading into your 50s, things like that. It's a transition for people who are moving into their 50s. It is a transition into middle age, often involving, pivotal moments within your career. Some people retire. For those in their 20s, this is a transition from adulthood or from youth into adulthood and taking on more responsibilities and things like that. And if you're in your 90s, late 80s, it's really about reflection. You're reflecting on your life and what you've done, your wisdom, your gifts that you've given the world. It's coming to term with your life and your life stories and what you've experienced. So that is your Saturn return. Remember, Saturn is the Lord of Karma. It is the person that instills responsibility and tasks. So it represents structure. It represents discipline, responsibility. Wherever Saturn hits in your chart, there's always going to be a certain level of responsibility. Now, I'm going to leave you with this because I've said this before. Wherever you have Saturn or Capricorn within your chart, you have the devil particle. Now, this doesn't mean anyone's evil or anything like that. You got to step out of that mindset. What do I mean by the devil particle? Well, I always tell my clients, you ride the devil. You never let the devil ride you. Just like you ride the dragon. You don't let the dragon ride you. The devil particle. Think of the devil card in the tarot. I'm going to use the tarot as an example. Devil in its positive is liberation. It's high magic, occultism, a knowledge, things like that. In its negative, it's trickery, it's deceit, it's oppression, okay? The devil particle in your chart, whether it's the malefic planet Saturn or the sign Capricorn, can either hinder or help you. You just have to learn how to use those energies. Welcome to Saturn and Aries.